Hey, Mr. Maldonado here, also known as Science. So today we're going to be looking at in this video is what an energy pyramid is. How do we use an energy pyramid? How do we read an energy pyramid? How does it work? And what does it tell us? So let's start by looking here at this food chain that we've already seen previously. So just to briefly review really fast, we're going to label it fairly quickly. So we always start with our producer. Then we move into our primary consumer, sometimes known as the first consumer or the first level consumer. Then we move into the secondary consumer, which could also be known as the second consumer or the second level consumer. And then finally, lastly, here we have a tertiary consumer, also known sometimes as the third consumer or the third level consumer. And because this is at the very top of the food chain, we can also call it the top consumer. So remember, we also have an herbivore here. We have a carnivore here. And we have another carnivore here. And the last table that we look at, we have prey right here. We have predator at the top. And remember, everything in between is prey and predator. So let's review really fast what we know about these arrows. Remember, when you have an arrow, it points in the direction that the energy is flowing. So that means that the producer gives energy to the primary consumer, and the primary consumer receives it from the producer. The primary consumer gives energy to the secondary consumer, and the secondary consumer gives energy to the tertiary consumer. So now let's actually focus on an energy pyramid and what it is and how we're going to use this food chain to kind of implement that. So here we have an example of an energy pyramid. This one is not filled in with any actual organisms here. We just have what type of organisms would we put in these sections. So think of it this way. When you have a pyramid like this, think of it as a building. What part of the building probably has to be the most solid part, the good foundation? Exactly, the bottom part right here has to be that solid, good foundation. So if we don't have a solid or good foundation, then everything above just kind of collapses down. It doesn't work out very well. So because of that, producers have to have the most energy. Producers are where it all starts. So producers always start with 100% energy. And to be very specific, they have chemical energy. Now, as we work our way up, the amount of energy that we started with begins to decrease slowly and slowly and slowly. So right above here, our next level are the primary consumers. We actually only have 10% energy here. So 90% of the energy was transformed into another type of energy, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So you go to the next level, and once again, 90% of the energy we have at the level before also gets transformed into something else. So here we actually only have 1% energy. Now, I don't want y'all to get confused with this. It's not saying that secondary consumers have 1% of the primary consumer energy. It's secondary consumers have 1% of the original 100% that we originally started with the producers. So finally, when we get to the top, again, another 90% of the energy in the previous level is transformed into another type of energy. So at the very top, we're left with 0.1% of the original energy that we started with down here at the very bottom. So what is actually happening to this energy? Well, the energy itself is being released as heat energy. Organisms obviously need to use energy to perform its daily functions to survive, whether it's moving around, interacting with other organisms, looking for food, actually eating food, to get more energy and whatnot. So as its body's performing all these functions, the energy that it used from the food it originated, it's being transformed into heat energy and released. So 90% of their energy is used up for its daily functions. So if I were to draw an arrow going like this, would I say that the energy is increasing as you move with the arrow, or would the energy be decreasing as you move with the arrow? Great job. In this case, the energy decreases as you move with this arrow. As you go up, it decreases, and that's exactly where we have this right here, as the energy is becoming less and less and less from the level before that. All right, so let's focus now on a very specific one. So we have the question here: what happens to the 90% energy that doesn't transfer from one trophic level to the next? All right, so let's focus on the word trophic level here. Now, each one of these levels in an energy pyramid is known as a trophic level. So your first trophic level is at the very bottom, then you have your next trophic level where you have your primary consumers, and your next trophic level, and so on. Remember that that suffix troph that we had learned in 6th grade when we were talking about autotrophs and heterotrophs is about getting the nourishment of the food they need, all right? So these are the different trophic levels that we have. So I want to focus here on the grass and the grasshopper. All right, so if we know that we have this grass starting at 100% chemical energy, the grasshopper now only has 10% chemical energy. So as we saw a few seconds ago, we know that this 90% energy that is not transferred from one level to the next is transformed and released as heat energy. Alright, so since the grasshopper only got 10% of the original energy that was there, all we're really doing, and this is a math concept you've learned, you're just moving that decimal one place over to now be left with 10. And this 10 is that number we have there, where the grasshopper only has 10% of that chemical energy. Then when the grasshopper starts to use its energy that it got from consuming the grass to do its daily functions, again, 90% of its energy is released, and only 10% of the energy moves to the next level, to the next trophic level. So from there, again, we just move it one over. So the next level, the level that we have here with the snake and the birds right there, that level will now only have 1% of the original energy that we started with at the very bottom. And then finally, again, they use up some of this energy for its daily functions. So that 1% energy that we have here, we move that decimal over. So at the very top level in this energy pyramid, it has only 0.1% of the original energy we started with. So again, the energy decreases as you move your way up. So now let's all sum it up. So we have an example here of an energy pyramid, and it just shows here at the bottom, you have a producer of phytoplankton, and then you have zooplankton that moves up, it's an herbivore. Then you have sea stars, you have rays, and you have your tiger shark up here. And as you can see, as you're moving up this way, what's happening to all of that energy? You have 100%, 10%, 1%, 0.1%, 0.01%. So what do we say happens to it again? Exactly, as you move your way up, the energy decreases. Alright, thanks for watching. Catch you later.